U.S. intelligence agencies have assessed North Korea's most recent test was probably of a thermonuclear weapon.
These pictures were from state media from North Korea. They won't go on to show the massive fireworks display that was put on that night in their honour as well. The crowds were told by North Korean officials, fed some classic North Korean rhetoric. North Korea will put an end to the destiny of the gangster-like US imperialists.
Almost a week after North Korea's biggest nuclear weapons test, there have been celebrations on the streets of Pyongyang. Across the border in the south, protesters are furious about the stationing of American missile defence systems. Chris Reason reports from Seoul.
Well, amid the tensions and high-stakes politics surrounding the Korean crisis, North Korea decided it was time to throw a party. They arranged yesterday in the capital, Pyongyang, for thousands to gather. They bussed in the scientists that they say were behind the successful hydrogen bomb tests that were conducted on Sunday. Those scientists bussed past thousands of cheering, adoring, flag-waving crowds and taken into the centre of the city where they were praised and honoured for their work. The THAAD missile interceptor launchers, those anti-missile missiles that have been so controversial here. Hundreds gathered to protest that movement, and there were some violent scenes. The locals say that putting that system into their village simply makes them a greater target. But no apologies from the South Korean government. Yesterday at the defence dialogue, the Seoul Defence Dialogue, the Prime Minister said that he would be doing all he could to increase South Korea's defensive systems at this tense time. Also there, Australia's Defence Minister Marise Payne echoing the call for sanctions, ratcheting up the pressure to try and get China and Russia to do more to isolate, strangle that North Korean regime, particularly talking about cutting off oil supplies to them. Also significant at that conference yesterday was the first official reaction from America about South Korea's push and discussion to rearm themselves with nuclear weapons. A three-star general told the assembled conference that they didn't think that was necessary, that South Korea was protected under the US nuclear umbrella, and that was enough.
Expelling the North Korean ambassador in the country in protest against Pyongyang's continued provocations. Mexico's foreign ministry says it has given Kim Hyong-gil 72 hours to pack his things and leave. The ministry also expressed its absolute rejection of North Korea's nuclear test, saying it violates international law and poses a serious threat to Asia and the world. The Mexican government has sent an administrative order to all federal government institutions to fully implement the UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea. Local diplomatic sources say it's the first time Mexico has deported a foreign ambassador since 2000. Mexico is also the first UN member nation to take such a strong action since Pyongyang's sixth nuclear test on Sunday.
Fishermen in Japan's northernmost main island say they're feeling uneasy.
I feel uncertain. I want the situation to end as soon as possible.
It's dangerous and causing us trouble. I hope North Korea won't launch more missiles.
Transportation links were disrupted with Shinkansen bullet trains and other lines temporarily suspended. In Tokyo, special editions of Japanese newspapers were handed out.
I can't find words to express my anger.
I couldn't take any precautionary measures other than just staying at home, but I need to prepare for next time.
We spoke to a retired Maritime Self-Defense Force official, Hideaki Kaneda, about the latest missile launch. He says the North likely used a type of intermediate-range ballistic missile known as the Hwasong-12. He added that the North's aim is to showcase the country's capability to attack the U.S. Pacific territory of Guam.
That is one of the demonstrations of the North Korea, who already declared to fire its IRBM Hwasong-12, which is capable to carry its warhead about maximum 5,500 kilometers. This is one of the ways for the North Korea to keep such a capability as the IRBM in order to attack the Guam Island. But this is in the another feature. It is a kind of transient model of the longer range ballistic missile, namely ICBM. The leadership of the North Korea intended to get the longer range ICBM eventually.
Kaneda says that it was a calculated decision by Pyongyang not to fire the missile directly towards Guam.
This time, they didn't fire the southern wall, but the eastward. But that might be some kind of political consideration and for the North Korea. If they fire actually to Guam Island, that would cause a very big problem. The leadership of the U.S. said that they have all kinds of alternatives, including military action against North Korea.
Kirk Lippo, now, of course, the former USS Cole commander. And Commander, I'm looking at these developments and wondering how we respond. We've talked about maybe bringing tactical nuclear weapons to the Korean Peninsula to send a strong signal to the North, both the North Koreans and the Chinese, as if that would be provocative, as if anything Kim Jong-un's been doing hasn't been provocative. But what do you make of that?
Well, I think that, Neil, as Secretary Mattis and the President have both said, all options are on the table. If you're going to bring those weapons in, I think that we need to be much further down the road. At this point in time, I think there is still a large gap left for us to exercise diplomacy and especially economic measures. But I'm going to say it again and again and again. This is up to China, China, China.
But what if China can't control them? I know you and I have asked this as well, but I'm beginning to wonder now because again, North Korea seems to like embarrassing China, like it did over the weekend when the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, was with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, and hours before we learned of this latest hydrogen bomb test, which obviously was awkward. So maybe China can't control them.
Well, Neil, I don't think China has done anything to indicate that they are even willing to control. They have made token cuts to their fuel, to coal and other things, but they really have not started to squeeze off the economic lifeline to North Korea to tell them that they need to cut it. I think they basically stop and they don't allow anything to come through. And at some point in time, if it calls for a maritime blockade, then that's going to be tantamount to an act of war, but it is a way for us to begin to start squeeze and work with it. I think China still has opportunity for them to begin to engage with North Korea and tell them they have got to back down on this. If they don't, the reality is, Neil, that we are looking at going and having an armed conflict on the Korean Peninsula that, God forbid, might even go nuclear, because there is no path except for conflict unless China engages to try and stop the North Korean thing. We cannot allow the proliferation of nuclear weapons offensively pointed at the United States or the rest of the world.